Alright there guys, and welcome back to another video. And today, we're back with some more Power Rangers. As I've already covered one Power Rangers series on this channel before, and that was Power Rangers in Space. Right at the beginning of July. And now, I have since watched another Power Ranger series that I've really been wanting to talk about. And that is 2001's Power Rangers Time Force. Time Force was one of the few Power Ranger series that I remember ever so tiny bits of watching when I was really young. I remembered one little bit about Power Rangers Time Force when I was very young, and that's what got me intrigued into wanting to watch the whole thing. So, let's get into it. Straight off the bat, I'll introduce you to the Rangers. As you saw on the thumbnail, we have the Red Ranger Wes, the Blue Ranger Lucas, the Green Ranger Trip, the Yellow Ranger Katie, and the fifth, final, and my personal favourite Ranger, the Pink Ranger, Jen. Now you're probably thinking, but there's 6 Rangers on the thumbnail, not 5. You'd be right. That 6th Ranger, who just looks like the Red Ranger again, that is Eric, the Quantum Ranger. Basically, he has the exact same suit as Wes as a Ranger. The only difference is this part of around here where for Wes and the other Rangers it's white. For Eric and the Quantum Ranger, it's black. That's the way you can tell the difference between the Red and Quantum Rangers. Now let's actually get into the story. So the series begins in the year 3000, and Lucas, Trip, Katie, and Jen have captured the series' main villain, Rancic, who is a half-human, half-mutant. And as they're bringing him back to freeze him and put him away, of course, it doesn't go as smoothly as planned. Rancic was thinking way ahead of the Rangers. He ended up escaping his capture from the Rangers and travelling 999 years back into the past, to the year 2001, the same year the show was made. So the 4 Rangers have to make their way to the past as well, but unfortunately it can only be the 4 of them, because the Red Ranger in the year 3000, Alex, supposedly looks like he has been killed by Rancic in the very first episode. The show really makes it look like Alex has been defeated, and prior to capturing Rancic, Alex had proposed to Jen to marry him just before this mission started. And then Jen, seeing her fiancé seemingly about to die, she's quite distraught. But they make their way to the past, but realise they can't morph in the year 2001 because the morphers hadn't been created back then. They need somebody whose DNA is close enough to Alex's to activate the Red Ranger morpher. And it just so happens that person is Wes, who must be an ancestor, or no, Alex must be an ancestor of Wes, because they're both played by the same actor, they both look very similar, so they must be distant ancestors from one another, nearly 1,000 years apart. Jen gives Wes the Red Ranger morpher, and it works. And then we finally get to see the very first morph of the series, which from Power Rangers in Space, it was let's rock it. This time around, the Rangers go, time for Time Force. That's what they do, and then what you can see in the thumbnail of the video is what is the end result with all those numbers behind. I quite like the Ranger suits in this series. I'm not sure which one I prefer out of Time Force and In Space. I can tell you right now, neither of them are my favourite, all-time favourite Ranger suits. Try and guess which Power Ranger series has my all-time favourite Ranger suits. Funnily enough, it's one I've actually never watched before. But I've seen all of the Ranger suits from every single series. It's an old one, just like Time Force, so there's a clue. And we've not covered it on the channel. We might in the future, but not for a little while. So, when Wes is fighting as the Red Ranger, Jen believes he feels like this is some sort of game. Like he's not taking being a Ranger as seriously as what the four of them do. And she's kind of right to begin with, because Wes is part of the wealthiest family in the city that the Rangers are now living in 2001. Wes's father, Mr. Collins, wants Wes to take over his company when he retires. But once Wes has fought with the Rangers, he realises he doesn't want to take over his father's company. He doesn't want to be a businessman. Instead, he wants to be a Ranger. And he's the only person in the year 2001 that is able to be the Red Ranger. So Jen says something that really hits Wes in the... It really makes him think. She tells him that he's never had to fight for anything in his life before. And he realises she's entirely correct. He hasn't ever had to fight for something. But now he does, with the power of the Red Ranger. So, Time Force follows pretty much every other Power Ranger series as formula. We have the Rangers living their regular lives, then a look at the villains to see what they're up to, then the mutant or whatever type of monster the Rangers are going to be fighting shows up, starts attacking the city. The Rangers jump in Ranger form, or they jump in as they're jumping normally and then morph into the Rangers. Then they defeat the monster becomes giant, and the Rangers get their Megazord. So it follows that formula like pretty much every Power Ranger series. And Time Force has quite a few Megazords. It's got the Time Force Megazord, of course, and the other Megazord that's most commonly used is the Q-Rex, or for the long version, the Quantosaurus Rex, which can only be activated by the Quantum Ranger, which is Eric, who is Alex's... Not Alex, I've got to stop saying that, they're so similar. Wes's old rival, and he's also the leader of the Silver Guardians, which is like the military that's owned by Wes's father, who's the CEO of a company called Biolab, who does scientific research on unusual things. So Rancic has a few people with him, aside from all the mutants that he sends out to fight the Rangers. He's got his right-hand man, Frax, who is this golden robot, there's a huge plot development that happens with him later on that no one could have seen coming, and his daughter, Nadira, who, my god, when the casting department for this series was casting Nadira, I really hope that being the most annoying person possible was what they were going for when casting Nadira, because that's exactly what she is. She's so annoying. Only in like the last 5 episodes of the series does she actually become tolerable. So let me go over a few highlights of the show. The clearly building romance between Wes and Jen throughout the whole series. Like, everyone can see it. Everyone watching can see it. Even the other 4 Rangers can see it. We have Circuit, who is a robot owl. That's the best way to describe him. Basically, he's the only thing that can connect between the time where the year the Rangers are in and back to the year 3000, which is the present for them. And Circuit's also the only one who can contact the future to send through the Time Force Megazords. And the Time Force Megazord has to stay in the year 3000 when it isn't being used, because it wasn't invented yet in the year 2001. And throughout the series, they keep bringing us back to the year 3000 of this guy who's sat behind like a big computer screen, observing what the villains are up to and what's going on, only for it to be revealed right near the end of the series, that it's actually Alex. He wasn't killed off in the very first episode. They make you think he was, but it's revealed that he wasn't. He actually survived, just. And then he ends up going into the past to try and help the Rangers, but he's very hard on them. He's not very understanding with the Rangers. He thinks that they've just been goofing off and not doing anything, even though he's clearly been seeing them defeat every single mutant that's appeared. But a little bit about that later. On to some of my personal favourite parts of the series. We have a 2-parter called Movie Madness, where the Rangers all get sent into all of their own personal favourite types of movies. Wes and Trip get sent into the Old West, which is funny because they were both actually watching a Western at the very beginning of the first of the 2 parts. Jen gets sent into a Kung Fu movie, Katie gets sent into a musical, and Lucas gets sent into a samurai movie. I thought this was a really cool part of the series with these 2 episodes, putting the Rangers in completely different settings. And the only way to get out of them was to destroy when in acting there's that little piece of board that you have that you go to, and that's the key to start rolling. I have no idea what it's called. Like a reel, maybe? I don't know what to call it, but you know what I mean. Destroying that thing is the only way to get the Rangers can get out of their movie madness, as they called it. Another one of my favourite bits was revealing because there's this blue serum that Ransik has to drink in order to not become a full-blown mutant, of which that serum was actually created in the future by a doctor who saves Ransik's life, only for Ransik to destroy the doctor and leave with all the serum. But that doctor wasn't actually killed, and instead he became Frax. That's right, the person who Ransik took the serum from and supposedly killed at the very beginning of the series has actually been with him the whole time. And Frax gets to the point where he's had enough of Ransik and even tries to destroy him and fight the Rangers himself with his own giant robot called Doomtron. In the end, Ransik turns Frax into a full-blown robot, basically making him not sentient anymore, and just being like an actual robot that just follows orders of whatever his master tells him to do. That was a plot twist that seemingly came out of nowhere. I was not expecting that. Nor was I expecting Alex to still be alive after what happened in the very first episode, but he survived. And then the finale is a 3-parter called The End of Time, where Alex tells the Rangers that Wes is actually not going to survive the final battle with Ransig, as the city that they've been living in for the whole series is going to be destroyed, and Wes along with it. But Wes forged his own destiny. He was supposed to be a businessman to take over his father's company. That never happened. So the Rangers fought to help Wes and defeated every single mutant. The only person left to defeat was Ransig. And only in the very final episode does Ransig see the error of his ways, where he realizes what he's been doing, the cycle of hate, needs to be destroyed. Frax, before being turned into a non-sentient robot who just does whatever his master tells him to do, he tells Nadira she can be the one to break the cycle of hate. And she finally does it. She helps deliver a baby in the final 5 episodes, and then she finds another baby who she picks up and carries to a safe place. While Ransig is chasing after Jen, Ransig shoots who he thinks is Jen, but in reality, it was actually Nadira who he shot, and with her holding the baby, he finally realised the error of his ways and turns himself into the Rangers, effectively gives up fighting them and asks them to take him in themselves. Then we all have a very sad but heartwarming goodbye that all the Rangers have with Wes as they go back to the year 3000, but he of course has to stay in the present for him, which is 2001. And right at the end, Jen finally tells Wes that she loves him, which had been building up for the whole series. And Wes tells Jen that he loves her, but they have to leave each other. But they do see each other again in the Power Rangers Wild Force and Time Force crossover episode, where the Time Force Rangers come back to Wild Force, which I've now started watching since finishing Time Force. I'm not going to cover Wild Force on the channel, so I'll just put that out there now, but Time Force and Wild Force both have absolute bangers for openings. Honestly, most Power Ranger series have banging openings, but those two especially do. And I guess one more thing I should mention, because I just mentioned a crossover episode, which probably should be the crossover episode between Time Force and the Lightspeed Rescue Rangers. This is a trend that begun in Lost Galaxy, where the Space Rangers came back to help the Lost Galaxy Rangers for an episode. It's a trend that went from Lost Galaxy up to SPD, where the Rangers from the most recent series that had just finished come back to help the current Rangers of the new series for one episode or two. And that happened all the way up to SPD. Then it didn't happen in Mystic Force, and then in Operation Overdrive, it was all sorts of different Rangers from different series that came back to help, instead of just one set of Rangers from the same series. But yeah, the Lightspeed Rescue Rangers came back, and Vipra, the main villain of Lightspeed Rescue, also came back in that one episode. So yeah, that was a cool little trend that lasted, nearly a decade, not quite. From Lost Galaxy all the way up to SPD, the only series where the previous set of Rangers didn't come back to help the next set of Rangers was Ninja Storm. Nobody came back to help the Rangers in Ninja Storm but they came back to help the Rangers of Dino Thunder. So, overall, Power Rangers Time Force is probably my new favourite Power Rangers series out of the ones I've watched so far this year. Now, I said that when I watched In Space, and I'm not going to just keep saying it every new Power Rangers series I watched, because I actually had watched the ever so tiniest bit of Time Force in the past, which is what made me curious of wanting to watch it again. But that's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and until we meet again, farewell.